If you look at old YouTube videos of me when I first peaked, and I went on stage on a dare, and the dare was I didn't want to be a comic. I just thought if somebody goes, ladies and gentlemen, Howie, and I said okay, and if somebody goes, ladies and gentlemen, Howie Mandel, that'll be a joke, right? Because there's no reason for Howie Mandel to be on the fucking stage. And I went on the stage, and then I realized, oh, people are looking at me. This is the most embarrassing. This is the most humiliating. This is the most terrifying moment for me in this moment. So I started to panic. And in my panic, I started going, if you look at old YouTube videos of me, my act is me panicking, and it's me going, okay, all right, okay, all right, oh, okay, all right. And then they start laughing at me panicking, and I go, what? Yeah. And then I didn't know what to do, and I put my hands in my pocket, and because we've talked about it, I have OCD, I carried rubber gloves with me always. And because if I was out in public, I was going to go to a public restroom, and I didn't want to touch anything, and I had gloves, and I didn't know what to do. I had the glove came out of my pocket because my hands were in my pocket, so I pulled it over my head. And I just started breathing, and the fingers are going up and down. The crowd's going crazy, and I blow up the glove, and I pop it off, and they roar, and I had enough sense to go, good night, and I walked off. And Mark Breslin, did you ever work at Yuck Yucks in Toronto?
Yeah, I've been at Yuck Yucks in Vancouver.
Yeah, so Mark, the owner, said, you got to come back tomorrow. And I said, for what? He goes, to do it again. And that became my thing.
Wow.
I never wrote anything. I didn't have anything. I was just, and then when I watched Richard Pryor, I went, you know what? You got to be lucky if you're talking about your life, if you're talking about real, relatable, or acting out authenticity, people seem to gravitate toward authenticity, toward real, toward who you are, even more than, though I did love the guys who did jokes. I loved Rodney Dangerfield, and I loved, George Carlin, but even in his later years, he just started talking about his philosophies, which I actually loved even more.
Yeah.
But that's who I kind of look up to.
If you had told me, like if I didn't know you, and you said, this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to go on stage, I don't have anything prepared. I'm just going to fumble through it, and I got some rubber gloves in case it goes sideways. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to watch a spectacular bombing. But no, because whatever it is that you have, this weird intangible thing that you can't write down, that you can do that, and it's hilarious. My friend Dimitri, rest in peace, he sent me, he gave me one of your CDs when we were both I guess I was 21 or 22. When did you do your first CD?
I did an album in '84.
Okay. So somewhere around then, a little bit after that, he gives me the CD. And it was a lot of that. But it was so funny. It was so ridiculous. We were crying, laughing. Me and him, he's this hulking national taekwondo champion dude, this enormous heavyweight guy, and he's dying laughing, just dying laughing with two of us in my car
because I'm just silly,
But it was so good, dude. It was so fun, and it was one of those things where you can't figure out why that's funny. That's not
because it's funny,
right.
The sense of humor. I think most people don't have a sense of humor. I always say this. And a sense of humor is to find humor where other people don't find it. Richard Pryor found it in a very dark, bleak, historical upbringing.
Yes.
And characters that were probably scary. And when he imitated them and told you these stories, we laughed really hard. That's why the tragedy and the comedy masks are very close together. They are close together.
Yeah.
And if you could find the humor in those moments, then that's what it is. The humor for me is I was drowning in public, and I have, and that's the truth. And I, as a kid growing up, I didn't have a friend in the world. I'm weird. I have mental health issues, which weren't diagnosed until I was in my 40s. And everything I was ever expelled for, gotten in trouble for, paid for is what I get paid for today. And I found a stream that is flowing my way, but I feel more lucky than skilled.
But what was it like? Because you had to develop an act, right? Because then you went on to do these huge places, and you're doing an hour. You had an act. So how did you just piece it together with all the different performances?
Yes. So what I do and still do now is I put together an act. I put together, if something funny happens, I realized, well, then you could just talk about it, and
Right.
you can just talk about it. And if you really talk about it, then it becomes something funny. And you could even talk about how I'm putting together an act. You know, I was talking about how in my act, you know, I'm here playing in town. I want to come over to.
Come over.
Can I play?
2
your
shows
place?
tonight.
I would love to drop
Come
in.
on down. Jim Brewer's going to be there.
I love Jim Brewer.
I love Jim Brewer.
And the club looks amazing.
It's
I've been
pretty
watching it
dope.
online, and I saw Chappelle. Everybody who's anybody comes by. I would like to, if nothing else, just to see the table
Dude,
in the green room.
You're coming on stage.
That
table's amazing. Isn't
Is
it?
that a real thing? Is that
No, it's carved. It's all carved out of wood.
It looks like a crocodile or a snake. Or,
Yeah, there's a guy, Scott Dow, and it's the_Dow, I think, on Instagram.
I don't know.
Whatever it is. He's an amazing artist that used to cut things like ice sculptures and stuff with chainsaws. And then he eventually started doing these tables that are these 3D tables with like crocodiles swimming like halfway above the water. It's sick.
Well,
like his artwork's incredible.
Well, his artwork is incredible. But I always wonder about these guys who do ice sculptures. Like your work is fucking incredible, but it melts.
Yes.
It's gone.
But this
It's
one
gone.
this is
There
an
it is.
anaconda. The reason why I wanted an anaconda is jiu-jitsu. And jiu-jitsu, obviously, Brazilian jiu-jitsu comes from Brazil. The anaconda is the biggest snake in Brazil. It's the apex predator. These fucking things are enormous. And, you know, there's even moves called the anaconda that people use in jiu-jitsu. Because
didn't
it's
know
just, because it's just like this thing that squishes you.
Is that your thing, jiu-jitsu? I know you're a fighter too. You're mixed martial arts, right? You do.
I practiced Brazilian jiu-jitsu for a long time. Yeah,
Right.
It's really
I'm not a
great
fighter.
stuff.
I'm
But the thing is, like, that's why I had that guy do
so it
a
makes
snake.
sense.
Yeah.
But it was great even when it didn't make sense to me.
It's just so his
I just
stuff. He
wonder-
does so many different things. He does skulls. He has one. See if you can find that one where he has a sea monster. There's a sea monster
What is
that's
a sea
attacking
monster?
a boat, like a mythical sea monster that's attacking an old ship in these raging waters on this table. It's incredible.